It gives me great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker for today, Joy Sagar. Joy is a certified medium, healer, teacher, and longtime member of Southern Cassadaga Spiritualist Camp. He is also a member of our Board of Trustees, which is an all-encompassing position to have in this camp. We are very grateful for all the energy and hard work Joy pours into the camp. Joy's purpose is to motivate clients towards their next best thing in this lifetime. Joy believes that hope, encouragement, and positive changes are always accessible to all. So now please join me in a warm welcome for Joy Sagar.
Good morning, everybody. Are you excited to be here? I'm excited to be upright. How about that, right? And why not? It's just a wonderful day. But what my question to you is, before we get into the talk or the conversation, are you excited? Are you living with excitement? And how do you identify with it? That's not the topic, that's just a question. So when I speak inspirationally, but it's going to be a little bit different. I have notes today. I'm usually working with the energy, so to speak, so we'll incorporate that, but I do have some words, so if I look down, I'm trying to check in with my notes here. So that being said, the title of today's talk is The Storyteller and Harmony. So let's begin with this conversation. Have we ever stopped to consider where our story ends and where we begin? Because life is always unfolding, day to day, moment to moment, experiences and so on and so forth. And sometimes it's easy to think our story of something that is external. A narrative we carry like a book under our arm or something that we are intrigued by. But truthfully, our story and we, the storytellers, are inseparable. We cannot be without each other, otherwise there's nothing. So our story is not just a collection of events, it is a living, breathing extension of our soul's expression. The way the soul is moving and evolving, these experiences become our stories. And yet at times it can feel as though the story itself takes a life of its own, becoming something far more significant than we can ever imagine. But yet, neither the story or the storyteller is separate from either. There is where harmony comes in, not as a resolution, but as a balancing act. And there lies the whole song and dance between the story and the storyteller. So, when the story becomes bigger than us, and I feel this is where my challenge came in putting this together. Because over my own journey, because I stand in my own two shoes, I'm not in your shoes. But life has become more from a point of observation. It's morphing into something or another through my experience, through somebody else's experience, your journeys, your interaction with me, and vice versa. And I find myself, I have my own stories, just like you have your own. And because of that, sometimes I feel slightly ambiguous to what part is mine and what part is not mine. And that comes again with finding that little sense of harmony between pieces of these stories. So when our story grows beyond us, it becomes something extraordinary. It has a potential of becoming even more than extraordinary. It transcends the personal, touching the lives of others, and carrying truths that resonate universally. It just becomes all-encompassing. So how would you be able to separate yours from the other? It just becomes, everything becomes one. Considering the parable of the worn path, walking the same path daily, the traveler eventually faces a fork in the road. It is a choice between the familiar's comfort and the unknown's certainty or uncertainty. After much reflection, the traveler steps into the unknown and, in doing so, finds the path that leads to growth and expansion. Sometimes we too must choose that is unfamiliar and uncertain in our journey of life. Sometimes we don't know how or where to start or begin with. But in that fork of the road in our lives, we're standing at something that is familiar, something that is not. And I would say most of us, for our first experiences, choose what is familiar, until that familiar puts us back on the fork in a different time-space continuum to see if we're going to pick the familiar or we'll go with the uncertain. And we take whatever we're drawn to. When our story grows beyond us, it is not about staying within the confines of what is known, but it is also about stepping beyond our narrative and letting it resonate with others. Now, it's a very critical bridge, and a part of that is, this is where it is also a critical point when the story really takes over you, or takes over us in our own journeys of expression, and then it becomes everything that we have to align to keep feeding that story that then is identifying with who we are. But that's another delicate bridge of its own kind. A gentleman named Viktor Frankl, who experienced unimaginable suffering, reminds us, life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by a lack of meaning and purpose. And that for us, sometimes, life becomes mundane, and it becomes the same old, same old, same old. And we are responding within that framework, but at the same time, it is the purpose and intention that gives us the meaning in the journey of our lives. So when shared, our story can become a source of meaning, not just for us, but for everyone who hears it. At that moment, we are no longer just storytellers. We become guides, beacons, and bridges between our experiences and the collective human spirit. And the beauty of that statement for me is, in our religion of spiritualism, it is very much ingrained in those that were once alive, are now passed on. We have their stories too. So that blending and the bonding within this story is primordial, because someday I will pass, somebody will be telling my story in their version or their understanding of it. So it's not about what story I'm going to leave behind, or it becomes my responsibility to always have a good story, because there are plenty of stories that are exciting and funny and irreverent, but they're still stories. So think about that, because spiritualism teaches us that all stories are connected. They are threads in the great web of existence, each adding unique color and texture. Our stories inspire others and contribute to universal narrative of growth, healing, and unity. And these stories are in many religious texts as well. If you think about it, they are in a version of stories that somebody has put in place for us to feel inspiration from. But what happens when we become bigger than our stories? When we outgrow our story? This isn't about the ego or the rejection. It is about spiritual evolution. It's about recognizing that the narrative we once lived by no longer fits who we are becoming. And just by that virtue, the story changes, because we no longer are in alignment that once was, but what is. Consider the parable of the broken pot. The man carried this clay pot with water in it. It has cracks, but the water spilled as he walked his path. He had spent years seeing this crack, but it was small enough to ignore the imperfection. But over time, he realized that it was not a flaw, but a gift, allowing water to nourish the plants along the path. Sometimes our imperfections, our cracks, our mishappenings, or whatever they may be, but they are also enabling us to grow. growing in more than what we have ever been and what we'll ever will be. Sometimes they create space for something new and something more. Joseph Campbell said, in a very good way, we must be willing to let go of the life we planned so as to have the life that is waiting for us. That alone is so profound in a way, you just don't know. There's no telling where it's going to unfold. So why not walk on this path with courage as it comes to you, as it's become available to you, to release what no longer serves you and helps you to move forward to the unknown. That could be a whole level of experience just waiting for you. It is a continuum, an endless unfolding of the soul's potential. To grow beyond our story is to honor life's divine flow and align with the ever-changing rhythm of existence. One of our profound pioneers in our religion, Andrew Jackson Davis, captured this truth when he said, "Nature in her unfailing wisdom unfolds the soul in ever-widening circles." So what you are today, you will not be the same by the end of today. We still have a few hours to go before the day ends. You may not be the same before you walk out that door. I'm just wanting you to recognize, because this is just a simple truth, our souls are expanding. Sometimes we have no clue. And that could be the beauty in its own way to experience what is this about that's changing. How are we experiencing that? Our story is one of those circles, but not the last and not the only one. There's always more. Now, when we talk about the story and the storyteller and the harmony thereof, so how do we find harmony between the story and ourselves as storytellers? How about that? So a long time ago, I was talking to one of the Sunday lectures, and these words are very profound for me. They just jumped out. Nothing is there. As a harmony is something you experience. You cannot create harmony. You can align things in congruence with each other, but the feeling that you receive from all that coming together creates harmony. So a person in the audience says, so this musician, they create harmony. We got one in the back right here with us. And I just very simply said, is it true? You're putting the elements together that is giving you a sense of harmony being created from the sum total of that. So my journey in my shoes is becoming, in a way, of experiencing harmony. And sometimes I'm just smiling at nothing because there's nothing in front of me, but there's that place within my heart and my experiences is creating these pieces together that are giving me just simple sense of like, everything is okay. And for me, in my journey, that's all I'm tuned in at this time. It continuously reminds me of the harmony that is being experienced in my soul's expansion. But what about you? Where does that take you? Now, this will help you because I just told you my story. But Rumi here, the great mystic poet, says, don't be satisfied with stories, how things have gone with others. Unfold your own myth. What I like about this quote is, it doesn't say unfold your story. It says unfold your own myth. Are you living a myth? If you come to a conclusive answer, enjoy it. Our story isn't meant to confine us. It is intended to expand us, to evolve us as we navigate the balance between the material and the spiritual, between the seen and the unseen. And I believe here the unseen is not the dead space or those that have passed on, but is the unseen space that we are not aware or we don't have a clue about what's going on. That's the unseen we are talking here. But a part of that story is you, and you have to put your pieces of your story and your expansion in perspective to your own journey. Spiritualism teaches us that every story carries a vibration. And we all understand, as sensitive souls sitting in this room, if you like it or not, you are a sensitive soul. We all understand vibration because we all understand how to respond to it. It pushes us, it pulls us, it tells us to get out. And if you choose to stay, then there's a whole version of experience that waits you there. So part of that is to understand everything is vibration, a ripple of energy that impacts both the teller and the listener. When told with authenticity and alignment, a story becomes a tool for healing and transformation. So that good old saying, it's not what you said, it's how you said it, is a simple way of saying what I just said. It becomes a pathway to your own higher truth. So choosing word wisely is one thing, but maybe next time choose word wisely and say them wisely too. That might make a whole world of difference there. It will change the narration or the narrative of your own story. Emma Hardin Britton, another pioneer of spiritualism, wrote, "Every soul carries within it the light of divinity, and every life is a testimony to the eternal journey of that light." And for me, that is what I experience when I'm sitting in sessions with clients across the table. Because it's not always about my own light. It's about their light. It's about what they need to understand, or they need to be shared what is going on within their own light. So it's not just always about me and my journey and my excellence and my stellarness to what I can produce, but it's about honoring space and holding space for that soul. And spiritualism, of all the places, allows us to understand that, because it's always understanding these laws of nature in our life are always ongoing thing. They're not stagnant, they're not sitting still, they're not confined. Even the laws that have been defined are growing within itself. So how can a one light be just a small light? One life is a big life to have. There's so much light to be exuded, but we have to understand to hold space for people. So before you hold space for people, I want you to learn to hold space for yourself. Because that's another thing we don't learn easily. We have to give ourselves that honor that we deserve. And that's the part of the storyteller that impacts the story in creating the harmony. One must learn to hold space. I will tell you, there was a part of my life I want somebody to fix it for me, or tell me something that I can apply it and fix it immediately. But then I realized I still have to do the work. Their saying is not cutting it. I have to put myself behind it. And that's where the learning becomes fun, because then I'm experiencing a whole emergence of me trying to muddle my way through figuring it out. And that figuring out is a whole story for another day. So in this light, our story is not just a reflection of our past, it is a map of our future, both a mirror and a compass guiding us towards the next chapter of our soul's journey. And I'm pretty confident everybody in this room is doing their best. And you must recognize that I'm doing my best. Consider the parable of the seed and the tree. A tiny seed facing countless challenges, realizing that its growth is not just about reaching the heights, but also about the wisdom it gains through struggle and persistence. Growth requires patience, trust, alignment with the earth's rhythm. Our story grows in layers and stages, just like that tree, both upward and downward. It is nurtured by our roots and guided by the winds of change. So how is your tree of life growing? How far it's moving and how big of a journey it's taking? I will give you another alternate story, which I came across, and that was about how long does it take for bamboos to grow? When you put the seeds, it's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They sprout in the 5th or the 6th year. But once they sprout, in 5 weeks, they grow 80 foot tall. So you could be stalling and feeling stagnated by your processes of life, your decisions and choices. But one day it's going to just sprout, and it's going to be so big that you would have no choice but to admire it. So Do you have that kind of patience? And if you have to think about it, think what year you are in watching your seedling trying to sprout. So the invitation here, as I come towards the closing, is to reflect in the present moment and what that story is telling us. Is it asking to be shared to become a part of something greater? Or is it asking to be released to make space for something new? What is it asking of you? What is it asking of us? Neither path is better than the other. Both are sacred. Both are a part of the dance. So if you don't like dancing, sorry about your luck, but you are dancing. You just can't witness it so clearly. Let our story be a bridge between who we are and who we are becoming, a bridge between the finite and the infinite, the earthly and the divine. As we walk that bridge, we may find harmony and transcendence. May we discover that the dance between the story and storyteller is, in fact, a rhythm of life itself, a rhythm that connects us all to the infinite web of creation. This is the power of our story, and that power is within you. This is the gift of the storyteller, and this is the dance, the sacred interplay of creation, reflection, and renewal. So as you move into the wonderful 2025, what are you going to work with the story that you're writing, or creating, or imagining, whatever the case may be? Something for you to think about, something for you to reflect, and then just be. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy.